The rural way of life is about making everyone feel at home. Tractor Supply chose advanced 5G solutions from T-Mobile for Business to transform intelligent customer service. Together, we put the power of AI to work across 2,200 stores, keeping things running seamlessly inside, curbside, and countryside. This is elevated customer experience. This is Tractor Supply with T-Mobile for Business. Take your business further at T-Mobile.com/now.
Now's the time for a great deal on a new Honda. It's time to drive smarter with high-tech features and excellent reliability. Check out the Honda Civic, Accord, or HR-V. For a limited time, well-qualified buyers can get a 4.99% APR on a 2025 Civic or a 3.99% APR on a 2025 Accord or HR-V.
See dealer for financing details. Exclude Civic SI and Type R.
Welcome to Off the Record. I'm your host, Nick. It's good to be seen, and it's good to see you. Off the Record. Thanks for listening. Thanks for telling a friend.
True Crime Podcast.
Be good, be kind, and don't little. Gather around, grab a chair, grab a beer. Let's talk some true crime.
Welcome to Off the Record. This is our long-running subscription show. If you wish, it's easy to sign up on Apple subscription on your listening device or go to our website to sign up on Patreon. We typically release a new Off the Record episode every other week, and you get all of the Apple subscription and Patreon episodes included when you sign up. For the last 2 weeks on True Crime Garage, we ran a 4-part series titled Killing Was Purposeful, episodes 841 to 844. If you haven't listened to those yet, please go back before listening to this free edition of Off the Record. Here, we have the recordings of 2 interviews that were a big part of the research that we did on these cases. Also, a shout out to Jessica Betancourt, my friend over at the DNA ID podcast, for all of her help, and a shout out to Melissa Andrews, a fantastic news anchor and investigative journalist at WTOL. These last 2 weeks, our featured true crime story focused primarily on 2 cases from Northwest Ohio. One, the unsolved homicide case of Lori Ann Hill. The other is a solved case with still a lot of questions remaining. 20-year-old Sierra Joggin was killed by James Worley. This was proven in court with a mountain of evidence against Worley that was found at the abduction site and at his property. Worley is a suspect in the Lori Ann Hill case. The state had to prove that the killing was purposeful before they could condemn Worley to the strictest and most severe of punishments, the Ohio death penalty. And they did. Worley is a suspect in at least one outstanding homicide case. He is the primary suspect in a case of another missing woman. The interviews that you are about to hear were conducted recently and not prior to Worley's convictions.
Hello.
Hello, Jeremy. It's Nick.
Yes.
How are you?
Good.
Are you still with the Fulton County Sheriff's Office? This is Jeremy Simon with the Fulton County Sheriff's Office. He was one of the canine units back in 2016 when Sierra went missing. He was kind enough to join me on speakerphone.
Yes, I retired in 21, but I've stayed on part-time, and I've actually come back to work for court security.
You had a good amount of experience by the time this case pops up in 2016.
Yes, I had probably about 25 years at least.
Were you in any form aware of this James Worley before the Sierra case?
Yeah, I was. Actually, James Worley lived up in the northeast part of our county. Right around the Delta Swanton area. I also grew up not too far from there. And James Worley went to the same high school I went to. He went to the same high school as my family. My uncle was about the same age, so I was well aware of James Worley growing up.
Did you have any idea of what kind of person he really was?
No, he did his own little thing. I don't ever remember him really working. He did a small engine repair, lived with his mom, always lived in that house that I knew of. I did, and then I knew of him a little bit before I got on the sheriff's office, but then it was after I got on the sheriff's office, I really got to know him more, I guess.
It looks like he was looked at in consideration for the disappearance of Claudia Tinsley.
Yes, I do remember that. I was not a part of that one, but I was aware of what was going on. There was a couple other ones that they were looking into him for other things, but I wasn't involved with that. I was just a road unit at that time.
I believe that was actually a Toledo PD case because she lived in Toledo and was last seen with him, but never seen again.
Yes, the mom, actually, from what I remember of that, the mom just had a bad feeling that night, and she's the one that got actually the information, the plate number or something that kind of pointed the investigators to him at that point.
In regard to the Sierra case, when do you come onto the scene?
Well, how I got involved is I was working that afternoon. I was on my second canine with the sheriff's office at that time. I had a sergeant that was working second shift with me. I think I was on a split shift, like at 8 at night till 4 in the morning. Because the canines, we kind of just floated around and did different shifts. Depends on where we were needed. At that point, I was on a 8 at night till 4 in the morning when I got the call from my sergeant asking me if my dog would be able to track a bike. I asked him, a bike? I mean, explain it more. And he said that they had an early 20s female that was last seen riding her bike along county road, one of the county roads. I said, well, the dog if she was on the road, the dog's not going to be able to pick anything up from the scent, but the scent will fall and stick to the sides of the roads. And then he went on to explain that she had been missing. Well, her mom said she hasn't been able to find her in a few hours. At that point, my mind went to she got hit by a car or something happened that she's laying alongside the road. Actually, I was 2 miles south of Jim Worley's house when I got this call. I was on 6-1 and K. I went over to 6, went north by Jim Worley's house to our county road T, just to see if I could see her, because my sergeant said the mom was frantic. It's not like this girl. And then she wanted the helicopters. She wanted FBI. She wanted everybody called. I asked who the mom was, and when he said Sheila Vakulik, I went to school with Sheila. She was a year or two behind me in school, so I knew her from high school. I said, let me go talk to her. I'll see, but I'll check the area real quick. That's how I got involved.
Were you present when they discovered Sierra's bicycle?
Yeah. What happened there is I went up 6. It was getting to be dark about that time. I went up 6 to T. I turned left. I went down. I seen Sierra's grandfather. He was looking, and I knew him. And we talked a little bit. And he said, something's not right. He was walking alongside the road. Then I went a little bit further the next mile, and I run into Howard Ice, which was Sierra's uncle. At that time, I didn't really know him. After I talked to him a minute, he explained what he was doing. I went up to State Route 109. I turned around. I come back looking, and I did not see anything along the way. When I turned on to County Road 6, heading north towards Sierra's house, I had my spotlights on each side of my patrol car just to give me extra light. That's when I noticed there was a break where the farmer, he went in and he did his end rows off, but he lifted the planter up before he got to the road. So there was an open spot that was not planted. It was on the east side of the road. I noticed a broken corn stalk. Now, I grew up on a farm, and I was in many cornfields growing up as a kid. A broken corn stalk in July catches my attention because they're very strong stalks. They don't break down. They won't bend over or break like they do in October when the stalks dies off and dries out and becomes a little more brittle. So at that point, I stopped my patrol car. It was about halfway through the mile. I got out. I walked over to look at that corn stalk to see if there was anything over there. That's when I smelled gasoline. I went into the cornfield about 5 to 10 feet. That's when I noticed that there was a set of, I couldn't even tell, it's probably 10 to 15 feet long of corn stalks that were methodically pressed over with your foot. They're all laying in the same direction just to open that area up a little bit. That's when I noticed there was footprints, tire marks. There was a screwdriver, some fusees, like something fell out of a bag of something that is laying there. It wasn't there all summer. It was freshly there. I backed out of that. I contacted my supervisor at that point, my sergeant, and I told him, look, you need to get people out here because I think I found something. I haven't quite found everything yet. And as I was talking to him, that's when I looked over and I seen the bike. I was looking to the west side of the road with my flashlight, just kind of looking around. That's when the reflector from a bike hit me. It caught my attention.
The newspapers, they often describe the bicycle as it looked like it was shoved back into the corn stalks. Was that the observation you made?
It was in the corn a few rows, like it was hidden, but it was, if I remember correctly, it was still standing up. After looking a little further into it, the corn stalks on the west side of the road appeared to be disheveled, like there was some type of scuffle going on. Some were broken down, some were broken halfway off, some were laying east, west, north, south. They were in different directions. Then there was a sock laying there. Then that's when I pretty much backed out. I mean, I yelled a few times. My sergeant arrived at that time. We were yelling in there to see if we could hear anything because it's very quiet out there. You know, after dark and then you can hear a lot. There was no sounds whatsoever. We pretty much shut the road down at that point, and that's when BCI, Bureau of Criminal Investigations, come in, the sheriff arrived, the FBI, and everybody come in at that point.
And we have hindsight to help us out to deduce what we believe took place at that scene, but I'm guessing the gas odor, the smell of gas is coming from Worley laid the bike down.
Yes, that's what we figured, yes.
It's thought that he may have rode past her and then lie in wait to ambush her as she continued on that county road.
That is correct. I believe what it was is that we believe that he passed her, went north on 6, pulled the bike off in that little pull-off. That's when he laid the corn stalks over so he could pull his bike in there. Whether it fell down in the soft dirt or he laid it down, that's where he said that he had mechanical issues and he hid the bike so he could go get his truck and come back and get it later. He's
at some point seen on a camera. Was it the camera from the high school?
Yes. Evergreen High School is set about 1.5 miles south of the scene, and this would have been County Road just south of S and US 20. Worley lived on 6, I'm going to say 2.5 miles south of the high school.
Some reports state that there were blood on the stalks or some blood on the stalks. Was that obvious to you guys, or was that something that only after BCI comes in that they find?
No, we could see the blood on the stalks. I didn't see a lot, but there was enough there that it was concerning, yes.
And were you present when they served the search warrant at his home? Because that's always kind of reported very strange, where it says that you guys got a search warrant for his property, but it also says, well, he was cooperative and let them into the home and walked them out to the barn. But cooperative, you can take that for what you will, because if there's a warrant, you guys are going to execute.
That's correct. At the time that they spoke with him the first time, well, let me back up. Later that morning, It was about, by the time FBI and BCI got there, I remained at the scene and logged people in and out. As day broke, the FBI, they asked me about what about the helmet? I said there was no helmet. Well, prior to me getting to the scene, the local farmer was taking his son to the Dairy Queen to get an ice cream cone, and they were checking fields. They see this helmet laying along the road, not knowing that it was part of a crime scene. They stop, pick it up, and throw it in the back of the pickup, and then they travel on. So it wasn't until morning when the farmer heard about this, he comes back and says, "This is what I found." So that's where the helmet come into play along there. When you start your investigation, you start small and you kind of keep opening up that circle. One of the Major Smithmeyer, who investigated it, he was very familiar with Jim Worley because he lived a half a mile away from him growing up. And they went and talked to him. And at that point, he was very, very open. I've heard some interviews. He basically let him into his house. He had a talk with him. I think the comment similar to he made was, "You're here about my motorcycle helmet." You know, I mean, so he left it there. Well, I dropped it or whatever. So I mean, he kind of placed himself right there at the scene.
And his statement is he went back to recover the motorcycle with his truck, but doesn't seem to add up that it just so happens this all happened at the same place where her bicycle's found and all these other items that he left at that spot, he failed to retrieve those.
That is correct. The screwdriver and stuff like that. He tried explaining it to that he was working on the bike and that stuff was left there, but yeah.
It's downright scary, Jeremy, to review this and think about he was probably at that spot for a good amount of time.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and the way it looked is she didn't go without a fight. The sad part was that she was within a quarter of a mile of her house.
And a lot of people that live in big cities and such will not be able to have a great comprehension of this particular area. I can't imagine that there was any level of traffic that evening.
No, I mean, it's very, very minimal. At that time. It's a big farming community. You have large cornfields. And I'll be honest with you, though, for somebody that's never been in a cornfield, to go 3 rows in, you can be pretty inconspicuous. People can drive by you and nobody would see you. If you were to go 10 to 12 rows in, it gets very quiet because you're surrounded by the corn. It's a very big, it's a sound deadener that, I mean, somebody could be in the middle of a cornfield and scream. People get lost in cornfields all the time. You know, the kids get out there and they lose their way. They don't realize that they followed the same.
You keep going in this. Yeah. Keep going. Yeah. Keep going in the same direction. Don't turn around.
Right. People panic. But when you get out in the middle there, I mean, the temperature will raise in the summer when the corn is growing. It produces the heat. There's moisture in there. It's very quiet, and it's hard to walk through because you got the stalks. They're like a fiberglass. You know, they're sharp. They can be sharp, and they'll scrape you when you go through there. So, but it's a very big sound deadener when they go in there.
Worley's mother at some point is moved to a nursing home, and it technically is her property, as I understand it. Was she moved to a nursing home before this abduction, or was that something that took place after?
No, that's something that took place after we took control of the property to do the investigation. She was there, but I think they moved her out and I think at that point is when they moved her to the nursing home. His brother, who had a mental handicap, also lived on the property in a mobile home behind the house. I believe he was allowed to stay there, but he ended up moving into an apartment into one of the neighboring towns.
Did you go through the barn?
I was in the barn only to help remove some items. for evidence. I did not go through it myself. No.
It's often described as that there was like a secret room in the barn, but that description to me, I don't know what to make of that.
Well, yes. It was made out of there was bales of hay stacked up.
That
and then they had
created like a false wall.
Yes. There was also a freezer, a full-size chest freezer buried in the ground. They had carpeting in it and stuff like that.
He spent an alarming amount of time outfitting this barn.
Absolutely. Something that you normally would not have in a barn for animals or for to store hay in.
The investigation into Worley moved pretty quickly. I mean, he's all this mountain of evidence that's found at his home and then at the abduction scene. How long after Fulton County is talking to Worley that the burial site is found?
I want to say, if I remember correctly, that was about a week. From the time we got this case, I knew I had bought some property in Indiana and I had to go close on it. It was on the lake. This was during the week that this incident occurred. I had a couple days off that I had to take to go do this in Indiana. While I was in Indiana, another sergeant called me and basically said at that point, it was over the weekend, that they arrested Jim Worley in this. So, I mean, within a few days, they had him pinned as a suspect. They started combing and they had people out looking for sites. I don't believe it was much over a week, if it was, before they found the site.
Did they find the physical site, or was there something that led them to that location?
There was a farmer that it was his field. I don't know if he was out or they were just out looking, and they found something odd where there was somebody tried digging a hole on the one side of the road, didn't get very far because it must have been the ground was too hard.
Mm-hmm.
Then they switched locations, but once they found the one site, that's when they went across. They started combing out or scoping the area and found the second site. But the FBI did also have planes out that can fly over and tell you if there's the disturbance in the dirt, or if there's, from a cornfield standpoint, looking at it from the road, you're not going to see much if it's 200 feet in. From an airplane, you can look down and see where everything's knocked down.
Worley is probably responsible for other crimes. I mean, we have unsolved female homicides in that area dating back to 1980s, and it's been difficult, especially for that area, the further you go back, because the Cook brothers were around for a period of time committing similar crimes. But every law enforcement officer that I've spoke to from the area is pretty convinced that Worley is guilty of one or two more, probably the Claudia Tinsley case, and then maybe another.
Well, exactly. There was a girl by the name of Lori Ann Hill.
Yeah.
From Swanton. She would have been. This would have been the mid to late 80s. It's unfortunately, it's not uncommon. We're a rural area. We have a lot of wooded areas. We have a lot of fields. Hunters find stuff a lot out here when they're out hunting or doing what they're doing, or farmers do as well. But the thing is when you have people from like Toledo, the Cook brothers, they think they come out here to Fulton County, it's no man's land, and they can hide a body and it's gone forever.
Mm-hmm.
Which it's probably less likely to be found right away out here. When we're farming and we're taking the fields out, or in the fall during hunting season, that's whenever we find a lot of this stuff. Or if people are just out walking, but that's by that time a lot of the evidence is kind of broke down. But yeah, I mean, and going back to Worley, I want to say this had to be 84, 85, because she would have been about the same age as I am. She was like 15 at the time. Her body was found north of Wasion. I don't exactly remember where, but that was at that point. And then Jim Worley was also convicted of another attempted abduction in White House, I believe.
Robin Gardner.
Yes.
And
Yes.
her story was so similar to what we think happened with the Sierra case.
It was eerily similar, correct. My biggest thing that I would love to get across to people is a 30-plus year law enforcement veteran. I've been shot. I've been in car accidents. I've been on investigations. You don't realize the evil that surrounds you on a daily basis, whether you're in a bank, a church, a school, or a gas station. You could be just driving down the road. You don't know what. You always have to have your head on a swivel and pay attention. Be aware of your surroundings.
Now's the time for a great deal on a new Honda. It's time to take an adventure with rugged capability and commanding style. Check out the Honda Ridgeline, Pilot, Passport, or CRV. For a limited time, well-qualified buyers can get a 1.99% APR on a 2025 Ridgeline or a 3.99% APR on a 2025 Pilot, 2026 Passport, or 2025 CRV.
See dealer for financing details.
Up next, we have Bob and Nikki Kolosinski. This is Sierra's boyfriend, Josh, his parents. Josh and Sierra were in a long-term serious relationship. They had known each other most of their lives and dated through high school and college. As you will hear, Bob and Nikki knew Sierra well and loved her dearly. I'm in regular communication with family members of victims and loved ones of victims, and I understand that this is not an easy thing to talk about. So I do appreciate you sitting down with me here today, and I think it's also a good opportunity for us to educate the listeners a little bit more about keeping our girls safe, about that wonderful organization that you guys have put together.
Sure.
And thank you.
Yes, and thank you.
Bob, we'll start with you. It's my understanding that you worked in law enforcement at one time. Is that correct?
Yes, I was a police officer for almost 30 years. And before that, I was a fireman and EMT and worked in the cell blocks at Child Study Institute for 10 years and also an adjunct professor at Owens Community College.
Back in 2016, and Sierra goes missing. How did your background in law enforcement, your working knowledge, how did that play effect on your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions? Meanwhile, your son is being questioned at some point.
It was very, very difficult. Matter of fact, I knew pretty much what they were trying to do as far as where they were headed and what they had to do, and that was very difficult. And you don't realize that until you have to turn your son over to the FBI, and you know that he's going to be questioned, and you know that as soon as they're done questioning him, then they can go and look for the perpetrator. But we knew that had to be done.
And of course, you knew your son didn't have anything to do with this. So did you offer him counsel and say, "Hey, son, this is just part of the you got to do this. You got to talk to these people and let's get them moving in the right direction"?
Well, that's pretty much exactly what did happen. The FBI says, "Well, we'd like to go talk to you. We'd like to talk to your son." And I said, "Okay, let me talk to him real quick." In 30 seconds, I said, "Well, here he is," and he's fully cooperative.
Were you handing him over per se to persons that you've worked with in the past?
No, I didn't know the FBI agents and the investigators. Things have switched hands, of course, and they're younger now.
And look, my father is retired law enforcement as well. And so to be fair, and they're human beings, they don't always get it right. Were you nervous for your son? How nervous were you for your son in that moment?
I was very nervous, and as far as I knew what he was headed towards, and that was just very unnerving. And my wife was probably twice as nervous as I was, but I knew it had to be done. So once again, so they can go after the bad guy.
And speaking of bad guy, Nikki, did you have did anybody in this area have any idea that this kind of monster's living somewhere in their community?
No, we had no idea. We didn't know until after the fact when, things were starting to come out that he had lived over there and what his background was, because it had been in, I believe, 1994. So no one talked about it. We didn't know.
How shocking did you find it, Nikki, when we find out who police suspect? How shocking to you was it that to learn that this man is a repeat offender, that he's a very violent, scary man, and somehow he's just living in our community?
I was overwhelmed with shock. It really absolutely revolted me, because in proximity, Sierra's house was literally 3 to 5 miles down the exact same road as where he lived. So if he was out trolling on his motorcycle, as what is claimed to be, he had gone by Sierra's house a lot. So it was just, it was really heart-wrenching.
Were either of you present for portions of the trial?
For the whole thing.
For the whole entire thing, we were there.
And we talked briefly about this when we revisited this story. We talked briefly about that moment where James Worley is making a case for himself. He swears he's innocent. He even claims it's a frame job by the police because they couldn't bust him on another case that goes back years prior where he's the last person seen with a woman who's never been seen again. We have family members of Sierra, rightfully so, standing up and walking out of the court. What were you guys thinking? What were you experiencing during those moments?
Well, we took our cue from Sheila Vaculek, which is Sierra's mom. So anything that happened during that trial, she was the lead. Anything she wanted, anything she did, anything she asked for is what the rest of us did. So she was sitting in the front row. We were sitting in the second row right behind her. And she was the one that popped up and walked out. And as soon as she popped up, I looked at Bob. Bob looked at me. We popped up. I looked at Josh and I told him, come on, let's go. And we all got up and we walked out. We were not going to listen to that. And at least I haven't. I don't know if Bob has ever gone back and listened to his manifesto, but I have never listened to it.
And I haven't listened to it. My concern was as soon as Josh stood up, I was right behind him. We walked out of the courtroom.
And your son, he took the stand. He had to testify in a very emotional testimony.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about Sierra, because with the long-term puppy love relationship that they had, this was a young lady that you guys knew since she was a girl.
Yep. Yeah. She, I referred to her as she was like the perfect girl. She could hunt. She could fish. She could skin a deer. She could ride a motorcycle. She could ride a horse. She could shoot. She could sing. She could dance. She was bubbly. She could wrestle. I used to be concerned for Josh's safety when they were at our house wrestling on the living room floor, because she was tough. She was a tough cookie. There's no doubt. Yeah, she was quite a girl. And then the last day we saw her, she gave me a hug. I gave her a hug. I told her I loved her. She told me she loved me, and that was the last time we seen her. It was a Sunday afternoon after they went garage sailing at, I believe it was called Funk's Junk.
Yeah, up in Michigan.
Up in Michigan.
And back to Worley, it's alarming how many cases he may be connected to.
That's what our understanding is.
Yes.
I was on the phone with a detective from Toledo just a week or so ago, and I couldn't even get the last name Worley out of my mouth before he interrupted me and said, "Oh, that guy's a serial killer. We just couldn't, we're convinced of it. We just don't have the evidence, and some of those cases are so old that there's not a lot we can do about it."
Correct.
That's what our understanding is too. Yes.
And, everybody has a different opinion, rightfully so, about the death penalty, but this is the correct sentence here. I mean, if there was I hate that we have to have a punishment so severe, but when you have crimes that are so severe, and this guy, I mean, he did this, and he harmed an entire community. The amount of stuff, I have no idea how many lives he may have taken. I believe that it's probably 3. I feel very confident saying 2 or 3. And then the poor woman that he abducted or attempted to abduct in the 90s, there's no doubt in my mind what he was up to that day.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree that this is not, Sierra was not the only one.
And with the current state of our state, the state of Ohio, they're not carrying out any of these death sentences, these executions as it is now. Are you guys keeping track, trying to stay up on the news? Are we any closer to getting back on track? There's a bill or a law that's it could swing either way, that we may be using different drugs, but there's also another push to try to abolish the death penalty here in the state of Ohio.
Yes, we do keep abreast of it. And, as a matter of fact, just last few months, we've been kind of watching it, and there is a moratorium in Ohio as far as the death penalty goes. His execution is, as you know, is set for May 20th, 2025, but that's not going to happen. There are still post-conviction petitions that are pending at the state level here in Fulton County that have not been ruled on yet. There had been something that went to the Supreme Court, and then it came back down, and then they set the execution date. But then there was another petition that was filed that has an opposition, of course, from the state of Ohio against it. But that has been pending for 2 years. And they just filed another petition to amend, a motion for leave to amend the petition that's pending, asking to add another element to their petition that was just filed in March of 2025.
And I hate to say this, but it's the truth. I spoke with Melissa Andrews. She interviewed James Worley, and she told me, she said, "Nick, I'm shocked. I expected it to be one thing." And she says, "I get there and he doesn't have it that bad in there." And
no, he probably doesn't. He gets 3 square meals in a bed, and he's warm and dry, and
has to make no decisions.
He wasn't doing anything before he went in, other than these, horrible things that he was up to. He wasn't a good citizen. He wasn't he wasn't doing anything productive when he was out. He's just this evil, lazy guy.
That's what our understanding is.
Yep, I absolutely agree with that. Absolutely agree with that. Evil walking the earth, for sure.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Yes. Well, earlier this year, we were very excited to and happy that we could partner with Keeping Our Girls Safe. It's a fantastic organization that you guys have put together. I did, during that campaign, I did try to inform the listeners about Keeping Our Girls Safe. We'll have a little FaceTime together later this year. I'm going to join you for one of your events. Bob was kind enough to invite me. And
Awesome.
Thank you for that, Bob. Please tell the listeners, what is Keeping Our Girls Safe? What are you guys doing currently for 2025?
Well, we are all co-founders of Keeping Our Girls Safe. I'll give you a little background. It started in our living room with me and Bob, Josh's sister, Mary, who is a co-founder, and Josh. And we had, as a family, wanted to begin or do something that supported him, actually, is how this all started. So we created this organization. It's a nonprofit 501c3. In September of 2016, we held a motorcycle ride because Josh was on his motorcycle when him and C parted ways. So we put together a motorcycle ride the very first year. And, me as a mom, we're setting this all up. And I'm just praying to God that a couple people show up. I was hoping for 50 bikes.
50 bikes.
That year, 2016. And we counted 475 showed in support of us, Josh, Sheila, her family, in support of everyone from the community, which just absolutely blew our minds. So why we began this is that we wanted to do free self-defense classes, personal safety classes for women, for young women, which is what started the whole thing. Because of course, Sierra, wasn't able to do that. However, I don't know, I think it was a couple months before we lost her that she had attended a personal safety class herself. So that's kind of where the idea stemmed from. So the funds that we've raised since 2016 go towards that effort. So we pay instructors, and our instructors are all law enforcement officers, because we wanted to do community policing to where, lots of times that a woman's first interaction with a police officer is when something bad happens. And we wanted the community women to feel more comfortable around police officers. So that's one of the reasons why we chose to have only police officers as our instructors. So women can feel comfortable around them and get to know them and know that they are humans just like they are. So we have police officers that do all the instructing. And I think to date, we have had over 3,500 women given free self-defense classes. We do them in the community, but my ultimate favorite is going into the high schools. We get invited to high schools to be able to give classes to the girls within the classroom setting, which is just awesome to me, because we also not only give them the personal self-defense, we also talk about sexual violence, and we talk about dating, and we talk about domestic violence. We talk about violence in any way, shape, or form that can harm a woman, a young woman. And then we even go one step further, is when we are going into the schools, we are in cooperation with any of the social workers that work in the high schools. So you never know in one of these classes what you're going to bring up in somebody's background. So we make sure that the counseling people, the people that are around them every single day, are aware that we're doing this, and that this may bring up some things that they may need to talk about, and to keep an eye out for that. And then we also give them resources, local resources. I hand out information. They all get a little goodie bag, which includes the self-defense keychain, Angel in Disguise, and then resources that they can reach out to. There's especially dating apps, and about good relationships, and the domestic violence hotline, and of course the the violent offender registry, I show them in the resources how to look all of those things up, because we do believe that knowledge is power. So that's what we continue to do, and we will continue to do it until.
And we give them tips on passwords for their phones, for their computers, because that was an issue with C, is that we spent a lot of time trying to get into her computers and phone account because nobody had her password.
Yeah, to ping it that night.
So we spend some time on that in the classroom and with the ladies, and that seems to help, and it drives it home and makes everybody aware that this stuff is important. It's not good to have secrets sometimes, and so we hope that we've really helped, and we know from the teachers that they've thanked us a lot, and I'm sure we've helped some girls out there.
What are those tips? Is it just something as simple as sharing your password and your PIN numbers and such with a trusted family member? If anybody ever needs to access that there is someone that has the ability to do so?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what we tell them, because time is of the essence. God forbid anything were to happen, the law enforcement family members need to get into the computers, need to get into telephones. And depending on the circumstances, you have to go to the policeman to get search warrants and things like that. And it took time for Sierra. We are almost 10 years out now. I think things would be a little faster now, but still, if we had passwords, it would be even faster. So that is like one of the main important things we share, is to share that information with at least one other trusted person.
Does any portion of the self-defense class, does it include the use of the keychain that you guys designed?
Yes, our instructor shows them the keychain and advises everybody that they get one when they leave the class, and shows them how to use it. That's probably about a 5-minute instruction on the use of it, and we teach to get away. We don't teach to beat somebody up. That's not the thing. That's not going to happen. We teach the students to get away, get out of that situation. Time is of the essence.
And the keychain is designed in a way, if you're using it in self-defense, deliver that blow, get a good solid hit, and it should stun the perpetrator long enough that you can get out of there.
That is the hope.
Yes.
That's what we want.
Mm-hmm.
Describe what it looks like for the listeners. And it comes in some really brilliant colors as well, some really cool colors.
Sure. It's described. It has angel wings, and it has 2 holes at the bottom of the angel wings where the fingers go. And it's used to poke in a vulnerable area, such as the eyes, such as the chin, such as the throat, the ears, and other body parts where we don't want to mention right now. But if that happens, and I remember the last time I told Sierra, is that you kick, you fight, you bite, you do whatever it is to get away. Because if you don't, then the worst could happen to you. And
we talked about this with her.
And we talked about it. We had that conversation.
And her and our daughter. Mm-hmm.
The last Sunday we saw her.
And the self-defense classes are for females of all ages.
16 and up. 16
and up, which is brilliant, because I know we've all been there, right? Daughter going through high school, and then some of them go off to college or becoming of age, and that's a terrifying thing for moms and dads out there. So a lot of these attendees of your classes are probably 16, 17, 18-year-old young ladies.
Yes, they are. But honestly, the demographic goes from 0 to 100. We just had a community class the other day of elderly women. And, unfortunately, these crimes are opportunistic. They go after people that are in a vulnerable place. They're crimes of opportunity, and they're crimes of control. And they want to control their subject. And a lot of times it doesn't have a whole lot to do with their age. We know that younger women are targets for sure. But if someone of that magnitude wants that ultimate control also, he'll pick somebody who's just vulnerable.
And we've had real life testimonials already of people in parking lots that have said, that stuff you teach in the class, that actually works. Mm-hmm. I used it when I was in a parking lot and I saw a person and I saw another person and they described what there was two people in the parking lot and it was an uncomfortable situation and they didn't focus on this lady. And then we have other situations like in department stores and other situations where they've said, this stuff from their class, it works. And that in itself just makes it worth it.
God forbid that anybody listening to this or somebody that attends one of your classes ever finds themselves in a real life experience of somebody approaching them or grabbing them, but at least they've run through it in their head a couple of times of what do I do? What can I do? What would I do in that moment? And if you start acting on instinct, which most of us would in that scenario, you're acting on the instincts that you've already kind of trained yourself and thought through prior to that unfortunate incident.
Yes, and we encourage women to come more than once to our class because it is muscle memory. You think about it, you're going to do what you thought about. So yeah, for sure.
And one thing we stress is do not look vulnerable. Don't be walking with your phone in your hand and looking at your phone. Keep awake and look at your surroundings. Look for all the people that may be around you and make eye contact with them so that they know you're looking, you're watching, and you're on guard. And that doesn't mean to be paranoid when you go out, but when you do go out, be aware of your surroundings, be aware of the people that are there. That, from the testimonials that we've received, that in itself has helped.
And when you're walking alone, have that angel in disguise keychain, have it ready, have it in your hand for that short walk from the building to your car, from the car to the building. It's something easy to train yourself. It's a good habit to get into. If you need it, you're ready to go.
Yes. Absolutely, because you just never know.
Tell the listeners real quick about the website if they want to learn more.
Sure. It's www.kogsafe.com. The whole story is there and the programs that we offer are there. And if they feel like they would like to donate, that would be great. Every single dime goes back into helping the community in one way, shape, or form. If I could take a second and just touch on another program we offer, if time allows.
Of course.
We have another program that we started about 3 years ago. It's called Honoring Good Deeds. And what it is that Keeping Our Girls Safe has trained first responders to be peers to other first responders in time of need. So we have a critical incident stress management team of 35 first responders that if we are asked to come out, even on one-on-one basis, to another first responder who's struggling, we will offer that service free of charge to any first responder. We have done debriefings in group settings and we have done individuals. And one of the reasons why we started the secondary program was because through the trial, we were pretty isolated during that time. So we really didn't know what was happening in the outside world for quite a while after we lost Sierra and then the trial itself. And we learned through that first responders from all over the state came to help search for her. And the Red Cross was even there to help search for her. And we had learned that they all had a really hard time processing and going through this. So whether they've been through 100 million of them, and this is the one that just, brought it all home for them or whatever have you. But the thing is that there really wasn't a whole big response that was available out there to them for their own purposes. So here they were giving everything they had of themselves to other people, and there was nobody to give back to them. So we decided to start this program. It is really important mental health wise. We want to keep our first responders resilient. So, the old adage is that the fireman's running into the fire as everybody's running out is absolutely true. And if we can help keep them healthy, and if they have a peer to talk to, then we've done good things that way also. Because we also found out that the jurors on Sierra's trial had a really hard time afterwards processing through everything that they had to hear and that they had to see. You get called in for jury duty just because you're a registered voter doesn't mean that this is something that you signed up to listen to, but you do because that is what you should do. And they did a great job, but then afterwards, so they had mental health professionals come in and help them and assist them. And that is another reason why we started this team. So we sponsor it. We are sponsored by the 4-county mental health board out in our area that also supports that team. So we're trying to give back to the community any way that we possibly can for all the people that came out and helped us. And any way we can keep people safer moving forward is just a plus.
And for example, last year alone in 2024, we were deployed 14 times to incidents, traffic accidents, et cetera, et cetera.
Wow.
And it's completely free, and we do it of ourselves and the entire team, 35 plus people. We call and people show up.
Yep.
To give back.
That's incredible. That's incredible. Well, yes, and I love to see that you've taken one very, very good nonprofit organization, and we've turned it into two, and you guys are helping so many people. And you said, I think you said 3,500 attendees to your self-defense classes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
That is amazing. And then you periodically, once or twice a year, you do these purse bingo fundraising events, right? There's one in November.
Yes, the first Saturday in November. Mm-hmm.
And I don't think tickets are on sale yet for that one, but when would they go on sale for that one, do you think?
They probably won't go on sale until September-ish. And yes, we did switch genres, so to speak. Josh stepped down from being on the board, and we switched over from motorcycle rides to purse bingos. So Bob, myself, Sheila, Sierra's mom, and our daughter Mary are all co-founders and run the organization now as it sits. So we this will be our 4th bingo, I believe.
And we sell tickets to it. People can reserve a table, but it sounds like a really fun event because there's prizes, there's raffles, there's things of that nature, and a lot of people just having a good time.
Yes, absolutely. We serve a really nice dinner. We have mystery boxes. We have all kinds of raffles, 50/50s, and then, of course, bingoing off the designer bags that we have. And we get a really good turnout. I think we had 325 people this last one. So, yes, people support very much what we do.
And Nick, I can tell you, these ladies show up to party.
I'm going to be there 100% in November. So I'm hoping that we have a lot of listeners here in Ohio, and you guys are, very close to the Michigan border. A lot of listeners in Michigan as well. So I'm hoping people will hear this and buy tickets and join us there. It has something that I'm a big fan of, which is called a cash bar.
There you go.
As I understand. And so if you buy a ticket and you want to come in and see me, just look for the guy standing next to the cash bar. That'll probably be me. Hey, guys, thank you so much for joining me today and talking to us and educating our listeners a little bit. And let's get some people to go to the website. Let's get some people to go to the the bingo fundraiser event. And if you can't go to that, if you can't buy a ticket for that, go and pick up a keychain for you and for somebody that you love.
Thank you very, very
much,
much.
Nic.
We appreciate it.
We appreciate it.